he's a man that needs no introduction.
I don't need
on this show or Eastern North Carolina. Congressman Walter Jones, who represents the 3rd District of North Carolina and the the United States House of Representatives. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine. I've been traveling the district. I've been to Wilmington, spoken Rotary Club in Eatonton last week. As a matter of fact, Rotary Club
at the old church.
Yeah,
that's a cool place.
Roland Vaughn and Jack Habit and John Becker and a bunch of new young people, which is good for any city and town. And
I spoke to that Rotary Club a couple of years ago. They have invited me back, which I think is probably a good idea.
Well, it's been 5 years since I spoke, so I'm sure you'll get back before 5 years. But and I was at the Rotary Club in Morehead City yesterday, and be in Newbern tomorrow.
So you're on the Rotary circuit.
Yeah, I tell you, Henry, the world's changed because of the internet, and I'm not saying that's bad or good, but you almost have to call a civic club and say, would you like to have a speaker? You know, we're home the whole month of August, and the nice thing about it is most are looking for a speaker. So, but, you know, you get 40 or 50 people there. Very seldom can you get that many people unless it's a political function.
Well, it's great to have you back on the show. You know, since you were here, we've had a little announcement. Taylor Griffin announced on our show that he is going to challenge you again in the primary next year.
Well, let me say this. John Boehner needs a puppet. And I'm not a puppet.
That didn't take much. That didn't take much.
And I'm not a puppet, so therefore when the time comes, it's months down the road. Nobody knows what will happen, but months down the road, the people can decide: do you want a puppet in Washington, or do you want an independent thinking person for you?
You know, it's interesting. Also, since you were here, the whole flap up. You had your moments with Boehner. And now another North Carolina congressman, and I don't know Mark Meadows very well. I actually met him last year when I was at a meeting at Western Carolina University down at Cullowhee. But I was very impressed with Mark Meadows, and now he and John Boehner have gone toe-to-toe, and he is actually calling for a vote to take John Boehner out as Speaker of the House. And, you know, the rumor was that the rumor was that Boehner was trying to whip the votes to go ahead and put that to rest before the August recess and couldn't get the votes.
Right.
Can you confirm that?
Well, let me very quickly tell the viewers and the listeners the story of several weeks ago. Ted Yoho from Florida, Thomas Massey from Kentucky, myself and Mark Meadows met and decided that something needed to be done. Mark had already started researching before that meeting the fact that you can members of the House can take action known as vacating the Speaker's chair. So we worked together, and Thomas Massey and Mark Meadows came up with the House Resolution 385. Anybody listening that would like to read it, it's very brief, can go on my website, and I'm going to read one out of 8 of the items that we think justify what Mark did. So the day that he filed the resolution, I joined him, Thomas Massey joined him, and Ted Yoho. The 4 of us joined him, or 3 joined him, made 4, obviously. So that in fact, I'll be doing Alex Jones today, a national show, as you know. It'll be the 3rd show I've done since I've been home of conservative radio. And we want the American people to know that we got a problem with the leadership of the House, that they have a problem, not just we who serve, but they have a problem. And let me read, if I can, very quickly, just one provision, and you can read more if you want to. Whereas the Speaker uses the power of the office to punish members who vote according to their conscience instead of the will of the Speaker.
He did that to you.
Well, he's done it to a bunch of people. I mean, we had the TPA vote, the Trade Promotion Authority, the rule vote, which sets up the parameters for the debate. 3 members of the whip team, Republican whip team, who voted for the rule, and we almost defeated the rule until it started breaking bones up there, that they were pulled off the whip. It's not a big thing, but they were pulled off the whip team. I mean, what the Speaker forgets is we are not elected by the Speaker to be in Washington. Maybe the puppets will be. But we are elected by the people of the districts that we represent, and the Constitution says we will go there to represent their interest. And when you got a Speaker that's trying to control how you vote, then something's wrong. So I thank Mark Meadows. I worked with him to get to this point, and we are just doing everything we can to return the House of Representatives back to the people of America.
That's
it's a special interest deal. I mean,
it's an interesting thing. And now, yesterday, one of these North Carolina websites, I'm not going to call the name because I don't have any respect for the guy, frankly. But he gets some things right. He goes off on a tangent and doesn't get some things right. But there was a website that reported yesterday that a high-powered, successful D.C.-based political consulting firm called On Message Incorporated is actually possibly involved with the National Republican Congressional Committee to try to take you out. Now, I want to get your reaction. And again, I want to say right up front, this website that published this is very often involved in agendas and political innuendo, and I don't have much respect for the guy that runs the website because I think it's all about and he doesn't like certain people and he'll attack certain people in the Republican Party. But in this particular case, he seems to have information that would lead to the belief that your own party is working to try to defeat you in this upcoming election. Do you believe that, and do you have any reason to believe that the story is true?
I would say yes and yes. Anyone who is independent, I just made this statement, Henry, that wants to do the best they can to represent the people of their district. When you have a conflict and the speaker has a bill on the floor, and his staff, they're part of the problem too, by the way, that they think that you should vote for the speaker's position and not the good of your people, then I'm going to always be in conflict, because I know that all of us, and put myself in this boat, we pay taxes. That's what keeps the government running, are our federal taxes. And the people that pay the taxes have a right to representation. And they don't need to have anyone, Democrat or Republican, sitting in the speaker's chair dictating how members should vote. So yeah, I know they did last time. I mean, the people that want to run, and there'll be probably more than 3 or 4 running we'll file next January or February. But the point is that you're going to have this. If they can't control you, they don't want you up there. And one thing about the article that you made reference to, I read it yesterday. I was on Bill LeMay's show on WPTF yesterday afternoon about this issue.
Our cousin station.
About this issue. I thought maybe you would encourage them to have me on. That truthfully, they said that I don't pay dues. Everyone has to pay dues up there. I think that I owe the RNC, that's the Republican National House Election Committee, whatever, you have to pay them dues. Well, I have enough trouble raising money to run for re-election. So therefore, there are a lot of issues, and this is the second time in January that I did not vote for John Boehner. I joined Mark Meadows, which we've already talked about. And I've been moving around the district, Henry. The people have a right. I had someone yesterday, when I finished my talk, I took questions down in Morehead City, and this one fellow was very kind. He said, "Congressman, I really believe you're trying to do what you think's right." And I said, "Well, thank you for that. I hope I am." I said, "I make mistakes, and sometimes the people agree with me, sometimes they don't." But I said, this book that I wish I could buy it for everybody in the district, called Extortion. It's the best example of how Congress works, not in the best interests of the people, but in the best interests of special interest.
And the Peter Schweitzer book, it's called Extortion, and the subtitle is How Politicians Extract Your Money, Buy Votes, and Line Their Own Pockets.
It should be, every member of Congress should have to read the book, and not all, but a few would feel guilty, I promise you.
Congressman Walter Jones live in the studio. You've been getting national publicity over this. You were on CNN. I actually replayed. I don't know if you know this, but
I didn't know that.
I replayed your CNN interview. You were on CNN week before last, I believe,
Right.
the last week before the session broke for the August break, before Congress left to Washington. You mentioned you're going to be on some national shows. You're getting a lot of publicity on this, and so is Mark Meadows. And I guess the question that I would have is, what's the legit? I know that you're making a statement, and we can always count on Walter Jones to speak his mind, like the man from Morehead City said yesterday. But what's the legitimate chance? Are we moving the needle a little bit with other members of Congress who are looking at this and going, you know what, Mark Meadows and Walter Jones are right. It's time for new leadership in the House.
Well, you made the point, and it was exactly what happened. The day that was the final day we were there. The leadership the night before had made a decision that they wanted, as you said in just a few minutes ago, wanted to get this behind them before we went home from August. And what happened was that Jim Jordan, who's head of the Freedom Caucus, and he's from Ohio, and he did vote for Boehner, and make that clear. I think reluctantly so, but he did. Okay, he went to the leadership and told them, if you bring this to the floor of the House, you're going to be embarrassed. Not that Boehner would have lost, but when you bring it to the floor, everyone, Republican, Democrat, have a chance to vote. Jordan's point was that you'll have 10, maybe 12 Republicans who wish that they had voted against Boehner in January, that will feel an obligation to the people back home to vote not to defeat this amendment, this resolution on the floor. So they pulled it. What we're hoping, Thomas Massey from Kentucky, Ted Yoho, with Mark Meadows, had a conference call a week ago. We're all trying to get on radio shows and let the people ask us, what can we do to help you get Boehner out of seat? Encourage your member of Congress to go back and either join on House Resolution 385 or when it comes to the floor, have a vote.
Let's cover some quick issues here. The debate the other night, who won?
Well, I think the debate, I listened to you earlier talking to Heather, and I kind of agree that I think Ben Carson came out okay on it. I think, you know, some of the Ted Cruz I like, you know, probably Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, and are my two favorites just because how they feel about the Constitution, but I don't think that it's not fair to have so many people. You get a minute and a half, you can't hardly think to give a answer, but all in all, I think that it's going to start weeding itself out over the next couple of months. And the next debate, CNN, I believe, in a month or so, maybe that'll be handled a little different. I think Fox did a good job with so many people. You've been
a big Rand Paul friend and supporter. You sticking with him?
I'm going to stick with him until there's a reason not to stick with him.
Yeah.
And, I believe that, as I said about Ted Cruz, I couldn't necessarily agree with his comment about the leader of the Senate, but I like people who will say what's on their mind, Henry. I really do. Kind of like Senator Helms. Tell it the way you see it. You might be wrong, but tell it the way you see it.
Kind of like Walter Jones.
Right.
Well, Senator Helms.
But
how about the Democrats? There's now talk that the FBI has now got Hillary's server. We may or may not get down to the bottom of the email scandal, but Joe Biden is beginning to look like he's actually going to run. Who's going to be the Democratic candidate?
Well, Henry, I believe when after the House holds the hearing, Trey Gowdy, in October, then she will appear. She's already said she would. I believe that will be the end for this reason. Her trust level is so low that I don't see how she can pick it up. And whether I agree or disagree with Biden's political philosophy or not, I think he's basically an honest man. And I think the Democrat leadership will go to him and say, we've got to have you, and go to her and say, you're so damaged, I don't know how you can survive. I don't know what's going to happen.
Biden is the candidate. That might be fun. And it would also be fun to see Hillary taking Trey Gowdy's questions and screaming, what difference does it make?
That'll be a lively hearing, and I promise you it will exceed Fox's debate. I promise you.
Very quickly, we got a minute left. Tom Tillis yesterday came out, strong comments in the Senate Armed Services Committee hearing on the Iran deal. Did President Obama push us closer to danger with Iran with this deal?
Well, the deal, obviously, there's going to be a vote. I talked to General Zinni, who I have the greatest respect for. He oversaw the Middle East before they run up to the war in Iraq, which was unnecessary. I asked him yesterday, I've got other calls I'm making to people who know the Middle East, which I don't, by the way. He thinks that Iran could have a weapon that could be used in the next year, year and a half. Without a deal.
Why would you not believe that their intentions are nothing but dastardly?
Well, you know, the Middle East is a total chaotic mess.
Yeah.
That's all I know to say about it.
I mean, they continue to say that, you know, one of their goals is to annihilate Israel. So, I mean, come on.
Well, the whole thing is that, again, the Middle East is in chaos thanks to the Iraq War, which helped to get that way.
Congressman Walter Jones, always a pleasure.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you for coming in.
You.
Good to see you.
God bless.
Keep on speaking your mind. We need you to be more outspoken. I'm a
wallflower. I'm sorry.